Southern grabs former Jackson State quarterback Cam McCoy out of the portal, and it sets the stage this summer for a quarterback battle between two inexperienced yet highly valued young QBs. Oh, yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald Sports editor and current site expert at Who Dat Dish and contributing writer at USA Today's Saints Wire. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off doesn't mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. We'll wrap up today's episode with a conversation we had yesterday, but I wanted to streamline it a little bit more. Building your program up as a struggling program during the transfer portal era is nearly impossible to do. And we kick today's episode off with a doubleheader, a two-part conversation around Cam McCoy joining the Southern Jaguars. In segment 2, we'll look at the ensuing quarterback battle that is on the way this summer and should happen. No handing the reins over to McCoy. I think that we should have a quarterback battle out there in Baton Rouge. But I want to kick this thing off with, why would Southern even make this decision? Why would McCoy even make this decision? I love the topic. Let's not talk about what's going to happen with success of the transfer just yet, but I love the topic of Cam McCoy going to Southern because it provides me with two of my favorite things to talk about. One, the idea of late quarterback transfers. We've done that a lot more this offseason, and I feel like we've done in any other year. And then the second thing is quarterback rotations. I get a double dose of that when talking about Jackson State and talking about Southern. So I'm loving this. And I guess a little honorable mention, this isn't something that really applies here, but it's related, it's close, is the idea of taking somebody from your rival. I love in-conference transfers. Those are some of my favorite types of transfers because it's a direct, for me, it provides me two people to talk about. It's a direct, I'm benefiting from your loss. So now I'm kind of doubly benefiting here. So I love talking about that. The reason I don't think it completely applies is because this was just going to be a depth piece for Jackson State. This was just going to be a backup quarterback. If everything goes to plan, Jacobian Morgan stays healthy, Cam McCoy doesn't see the field. So I can't necessarily say that this is hurting Jackson State because you weren't going to see Cam McCoy a lot anyway. That's the way I view it. So, but I did want to say that because I do love me some in-conference transfers. But let's start off with the idea of what it means when you bring a quarterback in this late. I don't know when I started leaning into this topic the way that I have, but I've started noticing it more and more. And it's just something that you could have had weekend. You could have had late spring transfers for years at the quarterback position. But this year, it feels like I've seen more than usual. And it's something that I've wanted to talk about a lot. But there's a very direct question. I'm gonna start talking like what's the dude who be hunting wabbits? But that's almost started talking like. It's a very easy question that must be asked. Why would Cam McCoy go to Southern to be a backup? I asked myself that question. I asked myself twice, and then I put the phone down for a second, and I really thought about it, and I couldn't think of an answer. It just didn't make sense. Was he going to start at Jackson State? Probably not. Would they have given him the opportunity? I'll say no. That's probably the reason why he transferred. But why would he go to Southern to be a backup? It just doesn't make sense, right? Like you're in a situation where you're backup. You obviously want to start. Why would you not just transfer? Why would you transfer somewhere that isn't going to give you that opportunity? It doesn't make sense. Now, I've looked at Southern and maybe this is just me, I've kind of looked at Southern's quarterback situation as resolved the entirety of the spring. I looked at it as being Jalen Woods' job the entirety of the spring. Cam McCoy transferring into Baton Rouge brings a whole new microscope onto my desk. I'm looking at this a lot differently than I was 2 months ago, than I was at the beginning of spring. I'm not looking at things the same anymore, because where it was Jalen Woods is the clear QB1, it now feels like it's a battle on the way. We're going to talk about that in segment 2, but it feels like a battle is on the way. I'm gaining a whole lot more clarity on how I view all of these transfers, but I view spring transfers dramatically different than winter transfers. Competition is different. But at the end of the day, when you bring in players after spring practice, that's because you've had the time to evaluate your team. You know where your holes are. You know what you need to fill. This is a completely different conversation than recruiting in the winter. You recruit in the winter, you bring in competition, you see, may the best man win. You recruit in the spring, we don't have the best man out there right now. That's the way I view it. If I go get me 17 quarterbacks in the month of December and I put them all out here for spring practice, that's because I want to know which one of the 17 can cut it. But let's say I had those 17 players and then May rolls around. Let's just use May. May rolls around and I go get quarterback 18. I'm not sold on not a single one of those 17. But you know what? Let's not deal in hyperbole. If I'm looking at a guy who I think could be my starting quarterback in 2025, but in the winter, right before National Signing Day, I add somebody to provide competition as we go through the spring. That's cool. That's iron sharpens iron. But if I go get somebody after the spring, after I've watched you be QB1, after I've watched you lead the team through practices, and in my opinion, get a full digestion of your skills, and I still go add a quarterback, this is no longer iron sharpening iron. This iron isn't sharp enough. This isn't the guy who I think can lead my team, or at least I'm not sure. Let me not say I don't think. I'm not sure this player can lead my team. And at a position as valuable as quarterback, with a team that just is coming off of a SWAC West championship, trying to win the SWAC all together, you don't have time to be sitting here second guessing if your quarterback is the guy. So now I am going to bring somebody in. Now I am going to bring people in to compete. It's a different conversation. I'll admit it's a different conversation. But late quarterbacks, this is what they mean. If I go through spring practice, I see my run defense is bad, I'm going to go try to add somebody to my front seven. Right? Like, I'm adding somebody to my front seven under the idea that they are going to be a starter. So if I look at that as a linebacker, why would I not feel that way about quarterback? Cam McCoy did not come here to be a backup, and I don't think that they brought Cam McCoy in to be a backup. I don't think that was the plan for him. I don't think that, let's say it this way. Sorry, I got something in my eye really, really bad, guys. Cam McCoy just left Jackson State where he was a backup. I understand why he would go to Southern. Southern is a good up-and-coming team. They just won the SWAC West. Could I have transferred somewhere that was a little bit worse and had a clear-cut starting position? Yes. Would you have chose to do that? I guess that's depending on the person. I probably would have went ahead and went somewhere where I knew I was going to start. But at Southern, he clearly got the thumbs up that he was going to have a clear competition to start. That's what it's the only assumption. Why would Cam McCoy, a talented quarterback coming over from Jackson State, leave JSU to go be a backup? Doesn't make sense to me. Why would Southern recruit somebody like him with the intention to be a backup? It doesn't make sense to me, right? I don't think I'm saying anything groundbreaking here, but the thing is, it seemed as if it seems as if Southern had their quarterback. It seemed as if Southern thought that Jalen Woods was going to be the guy. So I would only assume that after going through the spring, they're no longer sold. You go get Cam McCoy. It's simple. That's what you got to do. That's the only way to build up your team. It's the only way to build up your team. You're at the quarterback position. This is what Coach Graves had to say about Woods during the offseason or during the spring season. You always want your quarterback to be a part of those group of leaders. Jalen has matured and grown up. He understands what we want and require, and he has stepped up to the challenge. Uh, I don't know. At the beginning of the spring, Jalen Woods was stepping up to the challenge. And I can only assume that he didn't fully step up to the plate because you went and got Cam McCoy. Because I just don't understand why you would need to do that. I don't believe every position needs a competition at all times. If this is my quarterback, this is my quarterback, and I can push forward through the spring and the summer with this guy that I know I'm going to ride with in the fall. I don't need to go get somebody to make him compete just for the sake of competition, especially not somebody like Cam McCoy. Maybe if I go get somebody who is younger and I can get somebody who is going to be a backup and maybe after Woods. But Cam McCoy is a young player. You are bringing him in to start, which sets the stage for a very intriguing battle that must happen. There is no handing the reins to either one of these players. I believe they need to have a QB battle in the summer, and I'll break down why and what that looks like with a comparison as we continue with Locked On HBCU. Today's episode is brought to you by Wayfair. Now, listen, I know it's going into the summer. Maybe some of my teachers are getting off. It's time to do some decorating. I know I'm needing to get me something new for the apartment. I'm going to Wayfair because the days are getting longer and the weather's warming up and people are spending more time outside. Maybe you want to get some porch furniture. I know my girl's trying to get some. I already told her, go look at Wayfair. I'm trying to get this certain couch that I can't pronounce the name of. I'm on Wayfair. I'm trying to make some improvements to the decor of the living room. I'm on Wayfair. It doesn't matter where the room is or if it's on the balcony. There's only one place for you to go. That's Wayfair. Get yourself some patio furniture, some bedroom furniture, some living room furniture. Matter of fact, decorate your bathroom. It's simple. Shop on the huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer, and you can get, that you can get on Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's Wayfair.com. Wayfair.com. Every style, every home. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For all of my everydayers on segment 2, for your second listen, make sure that you are checking out Locked On NFL. The schedule released yesterday, last night. We had a little bit of coverage on that on Who Dat Dish. Make sure you're checking that out, as well as some other big time stories around it. But make sure that you're checking that out. That's the point. Who Dat Dish and Locked On NFL. I want to talk about this battle because I don't believe that they should hand the reins to Cam McCoy. And when I say hand the reins, I simply mean, oh, hey, Cam, welcome to Baton Rouge. Here you go. Here's the key to the city. Here's the key to the offense. You're now the starter. We're guaranteed. I don't think that you should move like that. I do think that Cam McCoy has the leg up. And that all comes down to the timing. At the end of the day, Cam McCoy entered Baton Rouge. Cam McCoy is coming to Southern after seeing a spring worth of practice out of Jalen Woods. I would say that means that Southern just is not sold. Doesn't mean that Cam McCoy is guaranteed to be the starter. Doesn't mean that Jalen Woods is out. It just means what Jalen Woods has put on tape over the course of the spring isn't enough for me to say I don't need to go get somebody else. And I don't think that's really up for debate. You don't bring in a quarterback after a month worth of spring practice unless you're not sold. And I know that sounds like a double negative, but if you are sold on your QB, why am I even bringing somebody else in? Babe, I do like you, but I want to go on these couple dates first. I don't know about you, but mine ain't going for that. So, but why not just hand the reins to McCoy? Typically, I'll do that. When CJ Montes came on, I was like, yeah, let's just go ahead and give it to him. That's his team. He's going to be the quarterback. I'm not so sold. And the reason I'm not is because neither one of these players really has a lot of experience. When you get into Cam McCoy, I like a lot that I saw from him. But he didn't start. He didn't start and finish any games. He came in and played a few, but he didn't start and finish any games. I love what he did against Lane College. Just wish he could have finished. He was dynamic. He showed all of the great abilities for him. I think he only played about a half, if that. I don't think he made it into the third quarter, and he had over 100 yards rushing. But it's funny when you look at that Jackson State quarterback room. You have a guy like Jacobian Morgan, who's going to remain the starter, who is a really good player for them. I thought he was solid. I enjoyed his production. Then you have a player like Cam McCoy, who is transferring over, and in my opinion, in the lead to start for Southern. Then you have Zy McDonald, he didn't play a lot at all, but he did step in the SWAC championship game and perform well, and he's going to Clark Atlanta. He will be the starter. That's at least my expectation. The same thing I said about Cam McCoy, I could say about Zy McDonald, in the sense that he transferred over after they saw what happened in the spring. And I don't think that they went and grabbed him to be a backup. But that's just an interesting quarterback room. I always talk about QB rotations and how against them I am, but Jackson State showed me in the beginning of the year, we have multiple guys who can be our starting quarterback, and we're just trying them out. I don't think that's the same as what I absolutely despise. I can't stand when you have one guy week 8, then another guy week 9, and halfway through week 9, you're back to the guy you were in week 4. I'm not a fan of that. That is bad to me. If you have 2-3 quarterbacks that you're playing and none of them can get 3 games off, not simultaneously, but consecutively, that's bad. That's bad quarterback management to me. That was not the case with Jackson State. They just had a really good quarterback room, and I really like what I've seen out of them. The idea of Jacobian Morgan and Cam McCoy going head-to-head is something that I think is really interesting. That would be a phenomenal storyline. Let's say that Cam McCoy wins this battle, and he's the Southern quarterback, and they get to go up against Jackson State, and he gets to play the team. He said, there's no way you should have picked that guy over me. And Jacobian Morgan sitting here saying, this is why you picked me over that guy. I'm telling you, it writes itself. But I'll write it too. I guess I just kind of made that up. So I'll write it too, but it's interesting. But Cam McCoy has limited production. Then you're looking at Jalen Woods. He started 3 games last year. They were all victories, so you want to give him credit for that. But it's not as if Jalen Woods is experienced. You put together Jalen Woods and Cam McCoy's passing attempts from last year, and you're looking at barely over 100. Barely over 100. That's about maybe 4 to 5 games worth of attempts, depending on what kind of offense that you're using. So, no, I'm not comfortable just saying Cam McCoy came in town. He's going to be our leader. I'm not comfortable saying Jalen Woods has been here. He's going to be our leader. Jalen Woods was in a real congested quarterback room too, as they teased it in Noah Bowden. And I didn't love Bowden. I knew how I felt about him. It's something I'm not sold. I don't remember too much just based off the eye test and how it made me feel about Jalen Woods, and that's positive or negative. And I remember being really high on the upside of Zay Tease It, but I may have been alone in that. And I'm okay being alone in that. But let me look at some of these stats that I want to read off to you by these guys. Jalen Woods was 38 of 66. 66 attempts for Jalen Woods. Now, he was able to pair it. He was able to pair it with 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So it's okay. It gives you something to be excited about, But, man, when I watch Cam McCoy, he's so electric. When I watch Cam McCoy, I get excited. I'm being honest with you. And that's not every quarterback. This is a guy who I'm looking forward to him winning this job because I want to see what he can do on a full game basis. I want to see what he's able to do with his legs, what he's able to do with his arm. I thought that this guy was really good. I thought he showed a very high ceiling. And I thought that he was a player who could achieve more than he was able to do at Jackson State. When it comes to Jalen Woods, he won, though. Jalen Woods was able to be, I think he went 3-0 as a starter. I don't think he started that SWAC championship game. Let me make sure that I'm not wrong in that. I don't think that he started that game. I think he came in and played, but I don't think he started. And I think there was a little bit of irritation. Yeah, because Tease It started. And I think if I'm not mistaken, Woods came in. Oh, Bowden came in, or Biden came in. I'm tripping. Okay, anyway, just in general, Jalen Woods, though he's been at Southern, though he was the starter during the spring session, Jalen Woods simply has not played enough games for me to say he definitely had to be the starter. Matter of fact, I would have brought in competition for him before the spring started. The fact that Southern didn't tells me that they were pretty sold on him. Then the fact that they brought in Cam McCoy at a later date tells me reverse. That's what it tells me. But whatever. It doesn't matter what it tells me. I'll tell you what it is. Southern is going to have a quarterback battle over the summer. I hope it doesn't extend into the fall. I'm not sold that it won't. But it's going to be Cam McCoy versus Jalen Woods. Both guys are coming from quarterback rooms that were very congested. One was at Jackson State, one was at Southern. I know now the battle is happening at Southern, so you would assume there will be a leg up for Jalen Woods. I feel differently because of the timing of the transfer, but regardless, these guys are going to compete. I think that McCoy's dynamic ability with his legs and his arm is the reason that I'm looking forward to if he can win this battle. The things I saw in a very small sample size told me that this is a starting quarterback with a high ceiling. I think he can be an all-conference player. So I'm very excited to see what Cam McCoy is able to do. But the first thing he has to do is he has to beat out Jalen Woods. As much as I'm excited about his ability to run and throw, it doesn't matter if we get into the spring, or excuse me, we get into the summer and he just doesn't win that battle. Now, as we push forward, I want to talk about why it's so difficult to build your team in this transfer portal era if you're already struggling. And I think I did this a little bit yesterday, but it got messy. And I started trying to combine it with the topic about Texas Southern's quarterback, and I just don't think it came out well. And I wanted to revisit it as we continue with Locked On HBCU. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know what a struggling program is supposed to do. The era of the transfer portal has stripped away all patience, right? Like I think that's a fair assessment. When you look at the transfer portal, players are not patient anymore. There is no more, I'm a rock with this school as they're on the rise. And I can't blame them. Players got to do what's most important for them. But let's take a school, and I'm going to go to the standings. That's what I'm going to do. Because I don't want to just take Texas Southern. I did that yesterday. But we're going to focus on football, and we're going to do this in the SWAC. Because I think it's way more difficult to retain your talent in the SWAC than it is in the MEAC. Because of the reason that I mentioned yesterday. You need to be a contender in order to keep talent. And it's easier to be a contender in the MEAC because you could feel like you're a step away and be third in the conference, be fourth in the conference. You're a step away. That conference is so hectic that if you lost 2 games, you very well could end up being really low. But at the same time, you only lost 2 games in conference. You feel like you could bounce back pretty easily. I'm looking at the SWAC right now, and I'm looking at their standings. So obviously, you had Jackson State who was on top. You had Jackson State who went undefeated. They cleaned out the conference. I know that they lost the game to Grambling, but that was a non-conference game. Jackson State is 8-0. Alabama State is 5-3. Alabama State probably feels like they are a step away. Granted, Alabama State has been a step away for a while now, and I'm kind of tired of this limbo, but that's probably where they feel. Now you go to the West. Southern was 7-1. 7-1. Gosh, I feel like they were 6-2. Anyway, they were 7-1. Alcorn 5-3. Does Alcorn feel like they're a step away? Texas Southern was 4-4. They're not a step away. When you're at a point in your rebuild process where you have to sell people that it's a 2-year journey, a lot of them aren't waiting. That's because the transfer portal has stripped away all patience. If you're a player, I can hop in the portal immediately. Let's say I'm one of those players at a struggling school, not even struggling, at an upcoming school. If I'm a player at an upcoming school in the SWAC, I might just go ahead and transfer over to a contender because why wait for you to be ready? That's the worst part about the portal. The worst part is if I am a tight end. Now, if I'm a quarterback, maybe I feel like I have the ability to change a lot, which is the reason I think that TSU getting that quarterback was such a big deal. But if we're talking about not gaining talent out of the portal, we're talking about retaining, not gaining, but retaining talent out of the portal. If I'm a struggling team, I'm definitely not keeping my players. If I'm struggling to win 3 games, like let me see who's at the bottom of each conference. UAPB, 2-6. They lose their quarterback. Mississippi Valley State, 1-7. I don't know who they lost, but they ain't keeping the good players. I don't know. I don't know who their talented players are. But all in all, Basically, gonna text about this. Anyway, the point is, if you are a struggling program, you're not keeping your players. That's out of the question. If you are a team that is on the rise, a la TSU, I think that they were a great example of this. They were a team who they performed better than I think people expected, and they could take that next step. You're like, oh, hey, man, we just waiting to take that next step. Why am I waiting on you to do it? It's not a guarantee. Now, you can be a team like Grambling who has a great history. I was going to say historical history, but they have a great history. They have great name recognition. You look at FAMU, even though they had a bad year last year, they still went 5-3 in the conference. They still have great name recognition. You still have those things. But if you are a team in the SWAC with so many squads and you don't look like you're about to contend for a championship, players will leave you for the team that does look like they can compete. Everybody can't go to Jackson State, but they can go to Jackson State, FAMU, and Southern, and Grambling maybe. Now you're going to put Grambling in there because they haven't been good. They can go to Southern, they can go to Grambling, or they can go to Southern, they can go to FAMU, they can go to Jackson State. And Jackson State can clean up nearly everybody out here. I'm just telling you the truth. Jackson State, being a continuous contender, can clean up any squad that is not in that tax bracket. And why would the players stay? You haven't shown that you can win championships. They have. They're interested. I'm going to go ahead and go. Let's not even talk about the financial aspect of it all. It's very difficult for me to believe that if you are going, you have to build a group of players. If you are a team trying to really come up, you got to do it in a year. There is no 2, 3, 4 year build, not even 4. There's not a 3-year build you can go through and expect people to stay around. They don't have that much eligibility. Like at the end of the day, players only have a certain amount of eligibility. They don't want to spend 2.5, 3 years of it rebuilding. They want to go somewhere that they can win. They want to go somewhere they can get paid. If they can get paid, they probably stay somewhere they can't win. But, they want to win and they want to get paid. I just don't know what you guys have to do. Anyway, on tomorrow's episode, I don't know what we're going to do tomorrow, but it's going to be Friday. So we're going to go out with a bang. We're going to go out with a bang tomorrow. But in the meantime, in between time, until next time we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.